What's up,
What?
profitable stylist? Here we go. This week we have a fun topic, and it's been a requested topic as well too. What is base breaking in hair color? What is bumping the base in hair color? And this is something that's been requested. It's something that I get asked a lot from a lot of colorists. But Bernard is actually the one who brought up this topic. He was so excited last week to talk about this. So I am actually really fascinated to learn so many things from Bernard today about base breaking.
I heard some echo in the background over
Yeah,
there.
I've been having some technical difficulty the past
So
couple of weeks.
Eddie's lying to all of you guys because
I'm
I
lying.
had no. I had. All right, let's talk about this for a minute. First of all, I did a quick little homework, and I've just looked up breaking the base just to see what YouTube as a search would say, and it said what a suggested topic came up: breaking the base color. And I was like, huh, okay, so people do look this topic up. They are interested in what it means. And I remember hearing about it years and years ago. And it's funny because my son and I were talking last night. He's training under me to be a hairdresser in the salon. And something came up about he had this extension client. She went in for chemo a couple of months ago, so she had to have her extensions taken out. And he was supposed to store the hair, but he's a new hairdresser. So he just gave it to the front desk girl. So he says, she's like, you didn't give the hair to me. And so they're looking all over the salon. They lost the client's hair.
Oh
And
no.
I'm like, okay, so he's kind of new. He didn't realize how important it was to put it in a bag with their name, give it to her. We don't want to be responsible for storing people's hair. But in the middle of all that craziness, he said, but she's easy. She's got light hair, but she said, I don't want any toner. I don't like all that toner stuff. Just lighten it as light as you can get it and leave it. I said, I did see her, and she did have a tiny bit of a golden color to her blonde. I can see where that's what she likes. And he said, I don't understand it. And I said, it's funny because everybody seems to tone their blonde. They just assume you're going to bleach hair and tone it every single time. And I said, we didn't do a lot. I think that came out about 15 years ago, if I had to think about it. And my wife was thinking about it. She kind of came up with the same thing. And I said, when I bleached hair, we never toned it when I was behind the chair. And Taylor said, how could you do that? I said, well, now that you got me thinking about it, I think because all the blondes were yellow. We thought blonde was a golden blonde. We didn't know it was supposed to be white or platinum, or that's what's changed over time. And so we got to talk a little bit about that.
Time out for 1 second. Bookmark that thought for 1 second.
Go ahead.
So
What?
did you guys never did any deep conditioners afterwards, or you never did any cellophane treatments, or you never did any kind of reparative, restorative treatments after a highlight?
Oh my God.
There's no way you bleached the crap out of somebody's hair and then just let them walk out the door.
Yes. There's no such thing as repairing hair.
What? What? All right, next week's topic: fight. In this corner and in this corner.
It's about as silly as putting a gloss color on somebody, clear coating hair.
Okay, now it's on. Now it's on.
We, I mean, it's
Look,
not alive, dude.
how,
It's
how,
look,
how long will it take me to get to
you're
Louisiana if I jump
squeezing
in my
me.
car right now?
You're hurting me. Oh, oh. I mean,
17 hours, Bernard. I will be there in
you can't
17 hours if I start driving right now.
you can't repair something that's dead. I mean, you can maintain it, try to keep it from getting more damage, but as you damage hair, it stays damaged. You can coat it, top it, fill it up with something, but I know this is so controversial and it's way off topic because people believe you can repair hair. I have a lot to say about that, but you're right. That should be next week's topic. Can you repair hair? I feel like I should give
Go ahead, go ahead.
yeah.
Keep digging
So
yourself deeper over here.
I feel like I'm pleading my case and proving it. But listen, so somewhere along the line there, you had some people that toned hair a little bit. But one of the big aha moments for him was when I said, the weird thing to me is toning can never go lighter because you're adding pigment. Would you agree with me there at least?
Yes. I'm so. Where is chat? Where is everybody in chat right now? We need to jump with get the pitchforks and the
Yeah.
torches.
I said, so it's funny. I won't
No,
name
yeah,
the hairdresser.
toning, yeah, because you are adding pigment back into the hair.
But in my own salon, people lighten hair up. And so, yes, we're going to get to this base breaking, but I feel like this is a good precursor to why base breaking is even needed. I mean, the very first video I found on YouTube, I went in and watched the first one because I figured it was the most searched to see what other stylists out there were saying. And it started with, you've got highlights on dark hair or medium brown hair. And so that's kind of where the story started with Taylor. And we talked about toning, and I said, well, let's just take two stylists in our own salon, one much more experienced with highlighting and one a little less experienced. The less experienced one is always a little scared that she's gonna bleach the hair too much, so she tends to wash it out a little too soon because she's seeing the hair through the white creamy stuff, so it makes the yellow hair look whiter already, and then when you wash it off, it's like, oh crap, that wasn't as white as I thought it was. She's not wiping it off or washing it off and towel drying it or whatever, not testing it and looking at it well enough. And so, and worried. I say worried, cares about the client's hair, you know. So she's of the opinion, like, I'd rather keep the hair on the head than get it too light and it fall off. So I said, yes, but the danger, Taylor, is that a lot of those hairdressers think, a lot of the hairdressers watching us now think, oh, I don't have to go all the way to platinum because I can always tone it. I said, but you don't really tone yellow to white. You tone it to some beigey color in the middle. And his girlfriend's sitting right there, and she's like, that's the problem with mine. I feel like I have beige. I said, and that's the other problem. All blondes see something different than what they all see something different than what we think they have. She's totally platinum blonde, but she sees beige. And then she goes, no, look right here. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So your ponytail, it's all spun up. There's a little patch of where, right, okay. So it's not even the same color from root to end. I know it does vary. And so they pick a little circle of what they don't like. And this is the problem with my whole head. And so it was just funny that we had a simulated client sitting right there saying, oh, the stuff the clients say about their hair while he and I are I'm trying to teach him something about it, saying you've got to get it light enough before you even tone it. And then that's where the base breaking came from. And I didn't know that some people call it a base bump or a bump base. So as I'm looking this up, people are calling it bump the base. I found it interesting because I've heard of the term for many, many years. I have never, now that I think about it, I think I kind of have done it, but I just didn't call it that.
In our generation, do you remember hair cracking?
No, hair cracking. Well, we might use that in the search terms too.
Okay, so depending on how long you've been in the industry, because there's nothing new. If you've been in the industry long enough, everything old becomes new again. And in today's generation of hairdressing, where it's referred to as a base bump or breaking the base, whichever way you want to say it, it's interchangeable. Originally, it was hair cracking. That was its first iteration of this, and it's not even a trend; it's a technique. Is really what it is.
Yeah, right. And what do you see base breaking as? When is it used, and what's it used for? And then I'm gonna say some things that I kind of learned that I didn't realize it was used for.
So there is what its purpose is, and then there is what it's being currently used for and used as, and they are completely two different things altogether. Okay, and it's unfortunately this is where the argument starts happening with people amongst colorists. A base bump. The idea of a base bump is you take a client's natural hair color, and you only are trying to lift it about a level, maybe 2 levels, maybe 2 levels lighter.
Yeah, right.
But really, you're only trying to lift their natural color up about a level, and you're trying to do it with, well, you're trying to do it. You're supposed to do it with permanent hair color. But you're supposed to purposely under process the permanent color. You're only supposed to do it for about 10 minutes. And the whole thing behind it is with permanent hair color, once the process starts, once the color touches developer, oxidation starts. And that window of alkalinity, your window of lift or window of opportunity, however you refer to it as, is your first 18 minutes. Now, it generally takes about 30 seconds to mix up the color. It takes about a minute to get yourself situated and start applying it, because people don't prepare first for success. They just go mix up the color, and then they come in and they put the bowl down, and 5 minutes later they finally section the hair off,
Right,
so
right. So they're putting a cape on, they're pumping the chair up, they're putting their gloves
that's a
on now.
whole nother
That's a whole video in itself.
that's a whole nother thing. So but from that 18 minutes of alkalinity, you've wasted 8 minutes. So all you have left is about 10 minutes. And that's the whole concept, is by the time you slap it on there and you apply it, it processes for 10 minutes. Your window of alkalinity is over, and now that permanent color is going to start depositing. So you pull it off before it starts depositing. So all you've done is
you do want to use it as soon as you're finished mixing it, is what you're saying, right? You're not waiting on purpose.
Permanent hair color should be applied immediately upon.
But you're saying, right? But you're saying for this base breaking, I just want to be clear, because it could have been taken either way. You're saying don't procrastinate like so many people do, just normally not even realizing it. Even in base breaking, you want to get it on as soon as you mix it. You're not waiting for that window to be gone on purpose for any reason. Strategically. Okay.
No, I don't care unless you're doing some insanely creative thing, which somebody would have to argue with me about it.
Right.
A permanent hair color should be applied immediately upon mixing, because it's all comes to the potency. Every minute you're losing potency, which equals you're losing lift. Yep. And depending on texture, density, and porosity, that is the difference between it turning into a brassy hot mess and not getting any movement. It's the difference between getting horizontal movement in the level versus actually getting any lift in the level. You're going to end up looking like a hot freaking mess if you don't
the base breaking
apply it properly.
Is basically taking advantage of the lifting power of the peroxide and the potentially ammonia or whatever's in the color, and then pulling it off before deposit starts to happen, basically.
Yeah, and it's supposed to supplement highlighting. So then this way you don't have this extreme contrast between dark base, like dark new natural color, and extremely light highlight. So you don't have this high contrast between the two. It's more of a diffused contrast.
And so in your research or talking or experience, are you doing this base breaking or base bumping before or after the highlights?
You should do it after, because you got to pull it all off, but some people try to do it beforehand.
What do you mean pull it all off?
Okay, when hairdresser talk. Okay, so generally speaking, you should apply your foils, you should apply your highlights, and then go in between, and whatever hair is left, that's where you're applying your base bump to, your base break to, and you're doing it within the last 15 minutes of when your foils are about to be done and ready to be rinsed out. The service, the highlight service is going to be completed, right? Interesting. And so because if you time it properly, you go towards the end and you do it, then you take about 5 minutes getting in between the foil. It takes a little extra time because you're going in between the foils. Yeah. You apply that, you wait 10 minutes, and then you take the client back to the shampoo bowl. And then that's what I mean by taking it down, taking it off, is you start pulling the foils, you start rinsing everything, you start completing the service. Some people do it beforehand and they just apply the whole thing. They apply the color to base break, to get that bump. They go take the client, they rinse, they rinse them, wash them, and then they bring them back, and then they foil over towel dried hair. And that's a thing too. You could do that too. So foil the application,
towel dried hair.
Oh, it's amazing. You've never hydrolyzed?
Okay. So no, hydrolyzed. Wow. No, I never heard of this term.
I teach an entire program over it. It sells out every time I do it. I only do it a couple of times a year. I do it about 4 times a year. But
Because you
every
don't want to
time I
make
have a
too much
class,
money.
because I don't want. It's a long day,
That
man.
class,
It's
that
it's
class
it's a
works
long
out,
day.
so I don't want to do it too often. I'm gonna have to get you something for that allergy.
I
That
I
allergy to
teach too
making
many
money.
I teach too many different classes. There's not enough Mondays in a month for me with all the
Right.
rotation of all the different classes I teach.
So it's funny that when I just at the last second decided, let me look on YouTube and see, like I explained in the beginning, what comes up if I it's funny, we used to say Google this, but I almost YouTube things before I Google it because I'd rather watch a video than read words. And many times when you Google something, the YouTube video comes up as one of the search answers anyway. So the girl that was doing it did it completely different than anything you described just yet.
Okay.
She did it on damp hair after the highlight.
Oh, so she's smudge rooting the highlight? Okay.
That's exactly what I was thinking. That's kind of what we called it back 20 years ago, 20, 25 years ago. It was more of a smudge root. And I guess that's fine. People come up with new words. And
Well, this is where the argument comes in, and this is like
go
what
ahead.
Brennan's saying. Like he's saying, "Oh, this sounds difficult." Hair color. The problem with hair color is this: there is no necessarily wrong way of doing it. It's such a creative
Right,
process
right. I
that
agree.
at the end of the day, as long as the client looks the way they want to look and they are satisfied, how you got to the end result kind of matters and kind of doesn't matter. It all kind of comes down to your efficiency. Now, doing the foiling first and then going in afterwards and bumping the base afterwards, it would be more simplified to do it that way, and that has become popularized in the recent iteration of bumping, of base bumping, right? Because at the time back then, we did it originally, we were doing it to extend the life of a highlight. And now I'm going to become argumentative. I think it's being done nowadays to band-aid mistakes in highlighting.
I think that's exactly right. That's where I was getting ready to go with it. So when I was looking at this girl, top one on YouTube, I don't know her. I don't want to criticize her on purpose, but her highlight looked a little rough. She goes, "So I highlighted this mannequin," and I was like, "Oh wow, it's uneven. There's big brown spots, little brown spots. It was a little some sharp lines, and maybe she did that on purpose to show how she was gonna soften the lines, blur the lines, and that's basically what it was. It was almost blurring, softening, smudging, melting, and so when you said when you were going through your scenario a minute ago, I was thinking, oh, he skipped drying the hair, but then you said highlighting over towel dried hair. So I was like, oh, okay, so he's highlighting over damp hair. But what if you don't want to highlight over damp hair? Well, then you've got the time of drying the hair an extra time during this whole service because you're hopefully going to blow dry and style again at the end. So to me, the way I saw it on YouTube seemed like the faster way if you're not going to be hydrolodging or whatever that's called. So for her, I think it made sense to me because it was like I highlighted a hair and then as I towel dry, I look at it and decide if it needs it or not. Basically like, oh, I think we should break the base or blend this a little bit, or I didn't do as clean of a highlight as I'd like. I'd like to pull it together, or maybe the contrast is a little too strong, there's too dark of a brown, too light of a blonde, and I want to kind of pull it together. And I think breaking that base when you're doing it over the blonde and the brown hair now, it is going to blur the lines, lighten that base a little bit, soften it a little, but it's also the place where the brown and the blonde come together. You got that root and you're trying to take that hair there and you're trying to blonde it to here, but you got a little bit of brown right there, or where the two come together, you got a bit of you got a blend, you got something. You don't have brown and you don't have blonde. You got something in the middle. Maybe the color of my little stick that I play with while we're doing the video. It's a little orangey, golden, brassiness, and the breaking the base is some sort of lightener. And you mentioned color. I've seen and heard of it being done mostly with bleach. So they'll just put a little very low volume, but again, it's something to lighten. And so, and I say I've heard the girl that I looked up on YouTube, she actually used an ash a light lifting ash color with 10 volume. She said very low volume, but a high lift color with a purple base. But I've always heard of it being done with a bleach or just a quick, almost like a soap cap, but only put on the roots. And the funny thing is, I've always called it breaking the base. So I assumed it was only because, we went through a time where people didn't want to call this hair that's right here, right near the scalp, the roots, because they're like, the roots are under the skin. The root of the hair is deep under the skin, and everything on top is something. So you got to call it they were really, really hard on the term of what you called the place that you would do a color retouch on or a blonding bleach service.
The new growth?
The new growth. Right. So they wanted to call it the base, the new growth, the hair near the scalp. But if you called it the roots, oh, that was taboo. And you couldn't call it bleach either anymore. You had to call it lightener or lift or whatever. And so breaking the base.
Oh, I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah. So breaking the base is not necessarily just at the base or the roots. They mean the base color. So breaking the base can be from scalp to ends on breaking the base. Also, in some cases, I learned
it's breaking up natural color. It's breaking up the natural color.
It's breaking up the natural color, just knocking the edge off of it, lightening it just a tiny, tiny bit. And so the fact that you're saying you use a high lift color or a color, and then you're pulling it off before you do a deposit, it could be just the same as using bleach then, because you're just lifting. But I guess you're lifting with
it could, but the problem
advantage.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. The problem is if you're going to use a lightener, if you're going to use a bleach, you're enslaved to porosity, and that could give you a very inconsistent result. It's safer to do it with a permanent color because then you're choosing your tonal base of that permanent color, and you have more consistent control through the process, through the 10 minutes of what's supposed to happen. You can kind of,
so you're basically toning hair, but just doing it at,
you're toning hair, but you're purposely under processing hair is really what you're doing. You are 100% purposely pulling permanent color off before does
you're doing
breaking work on dark and light hair. So okay. Do you remember? Okay, so talking about smudge rooting, now it's called shadow rooting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shadow rooting is the process of taking light hair and purposely making it darker at the root area or the new growth area.
Which is really popular in hair extensions and hair replacement because you buy a hair system that's all one solid color. It's easier to make that way. And to make it look more natural, more real, you darken the scalp.
You darken that scalp. So base bumping or base breaking is the opposite. It's the same exact thing, but the opposite. You're taking anything darker and you're lightening it up a little bit. Whether somebody has black hair and now they're going to have dark brown, whether somebody has medium brown and now they're going to be light brown, somebody's a dishwater blonde and now they're going to be kind of like an ashy blonde. It doesn't matter how light or dark your hair currently is. You're just bumping it up just a little bit. So this way, the contrast between the root area, the new growth area, whichever way you want to say it, and the highlight is a little more, the contrast isn't as severe. Severe, right? It's a little more diffused contrast. And now when it starts growing out, the idea is as the natural color starts growing back in, now you don't just have dark light, you have dark medium light. So it's more of a gradient transition, and that gives it a softer grow out. So if your highlight would have only lasted for about 6 weeks, now potentially your highlight can last 8 weeks or 9 weeks before you got to come back in, depending on how fast your hair grows. Or
that's why I never did it.
10 to 12 weeks.
I don't want them to take longer to come back and give me money. So I do have a good question here. You made me think of something. So most of what I did, I kept pretty cookie cutter when I was behind the chair because I felt like making a lot of money came with doing the same thing over and over. And it got easy. And my change up creativity was in the conversations and slightly changing what we're doing. So I didn't experiment with a whole lot of brand new stuff. I didn't teach back when I was doing color. So I didn't care about trying new and different things. I just kept I was like, this works. I don't want 10 color lines in my shop. I don't want all these new ideas. I've got a solid base of customers making really good money doing basic highlights. I don't need to start breaking bases. I mean, when people wanted a second color, they wanted some red along with their highlights. I was like, oh God, now I gotta do 2 bowls of color on one. Okay, but at least I can charge a little more money, and I just do a blonde and a blonde and a red and a blonde and a red, or 2 blondes and 1 red, whatever. So adding the third color in their head, putting a second color, was more profitable for me. But let me ask you this. So this is where you being more experienced on the color side, I want to ask you. You say you like and it's safer to use color. But let's take the rule that us colorists know that we don't all totally understand. You know what rule I'm going to say? Color doesn't lighten color. Right?
Okay.
You familiar with this rule?
Maybe.
Well, if I take your hair right now and if I put like a medium brown color on your hair right now,
nothing gonna happen.
Well, it shouldn't, because
because I color my hair black. Nothing is going to happen
if you color your hair
over my hair.
Right. So with that in mind, color doesn't lighten color. Toner is color. So you get a client that's already has some highlights, but they don't love it. They don't love the contrast or whatever, and it's technically a color correction that you're doing. You have someone come in and you're kind of doing some color corrective work, and you're thinking, all you really need is a little base breaking. But you don't know what is on their hair. They might already have some toner on their hair or color. Would you then say that base breaking is going to be safer with a bleach rather than a lightened, high lifted, or lighter color?
I see where I'm going with this? Going with this. Yeah. So, okay, there's 2 different things happening in your scenario.
Okay.
And they're completely 2 different things. The language is important. Definitions are important. So the color does not lift color.
Right.
We are now talking about permanent hair color. That's what we're talking about. Permanent hair color does not lift color, because the action of permanent color is to diffuse natural melanin to make room for artificial pigment.
Right.
And then if the hair is colored, then there's no more natural pigment left, so there's nothing to diffuse. So color doesn't lift color. You can't lighten, you can't lift. But you can get horizontal movement. And what do I mean is you can stay within the same level that you're at, and you can change the version of that color from with color from ashy to warm, or warm to red, or brown to red, red to purple, or violet,
which is technically toning.
So you're toning within the same level. You're not lightening. You're not
when
lifting.
You say horizontal, you're talking about toning.
Horizontal movement is toning, because a toner, the definition of a toner is to fill, balance, or correct unwanted tonal pigment, right? Because color has 2 jobs. It's got a deposit, and it's got to deposit its base, and it's got to deposit its tonal value, the visually of what you see, and that surface color, you can mess around with that surface color all day long.
You really believe that you can stay completely horizontal, because you have to toner, you're depositing color molecules, so you've got to be going darker, huh?
Not necessarily, because again, it's dependent on your level, and it's dependent on porosity. And this is getting a little bit, well, I guess this kind of matters for base breaking too, because let's say, okay, here, pick a level, 1 through 10. Pick a level. Well, don't pick 10.
6.
Okay, you're going safe. So if you're naturally a level 6, if you're naturally a level 6, if I take a level 7 and I put that on, something is going to happen to that natural color, right? Okay. Now, if I color your hair with a level 6 hair
according
color,
to the rules, we would say nothing.
No, natural.
Oh, natural.
Okay, if you're natural level 6 and I mix up a level 7,
got it.
Something is going to happen.
Yep.
Now, if you're a natural level 6 and I color your hair on level with a level 6, now your hair is colored level 6.
Mm-hmm.
I can take, and if porosity is, and everything is normal, we're saying everything is in an ideal situation, I could take a level 10, nothing should happen
Well, you might as
as
well say
far as
level
lift.
7 or
Or
level 7.
I'm just saying,
That was
I'll go extreme. I'll go extreme.
right.
Level 10 has the most ammonia. It's got the most movement action possible, right? So nothing should happen. You should stay within your level 6. If you're doing it with the demi color, if you're doing it, no, permanent color. If you're doing it with 10 volume, you might, because of porosity, you might lift slightly,
I was
but
going to say, I
not
know.
by much.
So,
Now we're getting into
the
all kinds of
rule,
craziness, right?
I know. That's what I was
But
going to say.
if
So the rules
you're
of color is
if
what
you're
color doesn't lift.
brown, if you're warm, I can ash you out. I can take away that warmth. Conversely, if you're warm, I can cancel out that warmth and make you ashy. I can make you from a brown into a red or into a copper or into a brunette or into a caramel, a whatever, a golden.
All within
Anything is
that level.
possible. And then keeping you within that level 6, and this is why we have, and this is why we have toners, generally speaking. Oh, so now, okay, let me correct myself. So toners, generally speaking, are demi-permanent colors. They're not permanent colors. You're not using ammonia. So this is why, this is where I was going with, I could take a level 10 toner because there shouldn't be any ammonia. It should be a deposit only color. I could take a level 10 toner, slap that over a colored level 6 hair color, and I shouldn't get any movement in lift. I should only be getting that horizontal movement in tonal value.
That's a whole video that we should be doing, because for most of my career in the early days, most people toned with permanent color. They use a little permanent color because it has color molecules in it. They have the peroxide. Yeah. It's gonna shift it and change it a little, but they've also definitely have some. You got that rule colored and lift color, but it technically will if you got ammonium peroxide in there. It will burn out a little bit of that color, but not
30
very
years ago,
well.
we didn't have the technology that we have now,
True.
We were diluting color with
water.
Distilled water. Yeah.
Right out the faucet for us.
You and I, look, Brennan and Taylor, if you're watching this, stop learning from Bernard. I know he's a great father, but as a mentor, I don't know what is happening down there, okay?
We're making money doing hair.
Yeah, because they have to keep coming back for correctives all the time. I can't
Oh
even
my
imagine
God, that's not even
shots
true.
fired. That's what you get for.
Yeah. So breaking the base, one of the things that always worried me was if you're just lifting a little, it's almost like putting bleach on somebody's hair for a second, minute or two, and taking it off. The biggest fear I would have is brass, orange, yellow. And so is there something going on with this base breaking in your experience that avoids that? Because that was the first thing this girl said in the YouTube video. She said, so you don't want to go too much or too far because you want to avoid getting brassy. I'm like, how can you avoid it when you're just barely changing brown hair? That's what are the 7 stages of lift? I mean, orange is pretty close to the top there. What choice have we got?
You got to break through orange before you get to blonde, and you got to break through that gold before you get to platinum.
So breaking the base almost always is going to be a warmer color, huh? If you're
by
just
default.
moving.
By default,
Huh?
there's no avoiding it. It's
Well,
gonna happen.
You said it's a level or 2, and she said the same thing. It's a level or 2. And then I watched a few other videos, and they didn't really mention the levels. But I always kind of knew, because just the way it said breaking, it insinuates it's just a slight change, and a slight change to most medium to darker browns is going to be a lot of orange. Now, I get breaking the base for lighter browns. They don't have as much orange, so it's going to be more of a blend. So you might want to kind of speak to that a little bit. I feel like breaking the base is going to be a much more successful ending when you have these medium to lighter browns that you've got highlighted and you just want to blend them a little better. Would you agree with that?
Definitions are important. You got to think about it. Okay, so I agree with what you're saying because it sounds reasonable. It's a sound logic. In reality, though, what is happening to the client's hair? And therein lies the problem. When you are lightening, any amount of lightening, yeah, you're going through your stages of lift. There is contributing pigment. There's that underlining pigment that we don't visually see, and it only gets exposed when you lift or lighten hair. Breaking the base, and we keep talking about this, and like you said, the madam that you were listening to, you got to be careful. You got to find that sweet spot in your timing. You can't time for too long. You can't lighten for too long. You are purposely under processing hair color. You are trying to do something ultra creative. You are purposely stopping the activation of that color before it is done doing its job.
This is one more reason to use color over bleach, I'm seeing.
And this is why you want to use color, because like you mentioned soap capping back in the day, we used to do soap capping, back at the shampoo bowl. A little bit of bleach, a little bit of shampoo, a little bit of developer, and you're just sitting there and you're rubbing it and rubbing it and rubbing it. You're trying to create that friction with your hands, and you're trying to, warm up that hair just to lighten it, just to lighten it, which is bumping, breaking, So when you're doing it with hair color, yeah, you have a little more control because it's a slower burn, especially when you're using a lower developer. Now you've got lower peroxide. 10 volume is 3% hydrogen peroxide. So the activation of ammonia or whatever the MEA, AMP, whatever the lifting agent is that's getting activated, because it's only 3% peroxide, it's a slower burn, so it's more controlled, right? There is some color lines nowadays that have liquid color, and they have their demi-permanent color, and they have a liquid version that is 20 volume and 40 volume. But because they're demi-permanent and they're liquid, there is no ammonia. There's no lift. So what happens is, generally speaking, they usually have a regular developer and a little bit more intense developer. So it's usually like a 1.6 or a 1.9% peroxide. And then they have a 3 or a 4% peroxide, right? But now...
so that first one's less than 10 volume.
Yeah, 1.9% is about 5 or 6 volume, technically speaking.
Okay. Yeah.
And then 3%, 4% is about 10, 11 volume. So now when they start coming up with 20 volume and 40 volume, now you're talking about 6% peroxide strength, and 40 volume is 12% peroxide strength. 12% peroxide strength. You're using the hydrogen peroxide in the absence of an activator, AMP, MEA, ammonia, any kind of thing that's going to cause oxidation. In the absence of oxidation, then the peroxide has got to expend its energy some other way, and it's going to start eating away at the pigment, at the natural pigment, natural melanin in the hair. So the 20 volume liquid developer is now going to give you maybe a half a level to 1 level of lift. A 40 volume developer just straight by itself is going to give you a level, maybe a level and a half, maybe 2 levels of lift. Get
3 or 4 levels of lift.
If you're mixing it with permanent color, you would get up to 4 levels of lift,
interesting. Right? That's interesting, minus the ammonia.
Do you remember pre-softening back in the day?
Yes.
So we used to take 20 volume developer and just straight, nothing else, just straight 20 volume developer, and we used to put it around the hairline and let it sit for 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
To help the hair, especially with grays.
Yeah, you
would gray.
And that was base bumping. That was cracking. That was breaking the base.
Okay, yeah.
That was breaking the base. We were pre-softening that hairline because that cuticle was tight and it was resistant. We were putting the peroxide on there to pre-lighten, pre-lift it up a little bit, to open up and expose that cuticle, expose that contributing pigment, that underlining pigment that exists. So then when we went over it with our hair color, with our target formula, it would grab and link in better. and then it would balance itself out because we left it on the whole same time. So base bumping, base breaking is you're basically pre-softening that hair, but you're doing it in a very controlled way, in a very slow burn kind of way. It's why
I like that
it's
term.
preferred to
Slow
do it.
burn.
Yeah, it's a slow burn, right? It's better to do it with permanent color than, I'm not saying you can't do it with lightener or bleach. I'm just suggesting that it's safer. It's a more controlled result to do it
Yeah,
with permanent color.
right.
That's really what it comes down to. Now, that's the technicality behind it. You know, everything else is the opinion. Why is it necessary? Why do we have it? What is its purpose? Like why do we have to do that? Why can't you just come up with a proper formula that is a base color and then come up with a proper highlight technique that's going to get you close enough to wherever you're trying to go so you have that nice beautiful contrast? Why is base breaking become what it has become now, which in my personal opinion is a band-aid fix because you suck at foiling?
No, I wouldn't say that's 100%.
Opinion,
But
opinion.
no, I
That's my
know.
opinion.
But it's interesting you say that because I kind of felt the same way at first too. Because when something gets said or is done and you see it being done all over the place and you don't do it, but you have a very successful business in this same field, you wonder like, well, how am I surviving not doing this thing that everybody thinks you have to do, like toning, or conditioning treatments. And so
Wow. Okay.
while you were shaking your head, yes, I thought I'd throw that in there.
Okay. Okay.
And so with the base breaking, I tried to think, are there like immediately comes to my head, are there things I'm doing that were similar to that already? And you just kind of touched on one. Sure, I had plenty of people that I got a couple of examples that their hair was too dark in their opinion. They show a picture of highlights they want, but I'm like, well, that brown hair on that client is lighter, so we're gonna have to lighten your hair and then highlight it, or vice versa. But yeah, so we would lighten a person's hair all over the head. Just go ahead and put lighter color because it was their natural color, so I could lighten it a level or two or three, and then now the real reason that got popular was we had people with 20, 30, 40% gray, and they wanted brown and blonde, and they didn't want the gray in there. Sometimes back when we were doing highlights, especially if it wasn't a platinum blondes mix well with the gray hair and it just looks like part of the highlight. But when you're doing highlights like this golden blonde behind me, the gray hairs, maybe they're too many. And so we got to the point where we had to color the hair. And so it was kind of funny because you're starting with white hair and brown hair, and you're meeting in the middle somewhere. You're turning the grays some shade of brown and the darker brown some shade of a lighter brown, but you're getting a consistent brown in the middle there, and then highlighting. So they have highlighted medium brown hair. Now the trouble came in when they grew out a little bit. How do you now we're retouching the scalp with that little lighter brown hair to cover the gray and lighten the brown. And I guess that was a sort of base breaking, And
it
then
is, yeah.
we would highlight. So it was a long service, cost a lot of money. I don't know any other way to do it. And that's probably a whole nother video also, but that's part of the creativity of doing hair. If they have too much gray, which we've kind of, I don't know, I guess we kind of outtrended that lately. Most people's blondes, they don't want in that golden. They want it so freaking light that the grays tend to just be a part of your highlight these days. I don't even know if many people have that challenge that I had anymore.
Well, no, because if you look at the upcoming trends now, people want the highlight all the way down to the base of their head now.
Yeah.
It's balayage is still going to be a thing. Ombre is still going to be a thing. Shadow rooting and base breaking and base bumping is always going to still be a thing. But if you look at the current trends, it's getting, those highlights are not starting down here no more. They're getting up and up and up. People want that definition. People want that contrast.
Yep.
So it's going to become important to be able to properly do base breaking and base bumps and stuff like that, because how often are you going to touch up somebody's highlights, and where are you going to put those highlights to have it be placed in such a way that you're going to be able to touch those up? Because if you keep over highlighting over and over and over and over, and you don't have a plan, you don't have a positioning, you're just going to look like a single process of highlighting, you know?
Right.
You're going to look like an all over color of highlights. So the base bump and the base break, I guess, no, because that's still a Band-Aid fix.
It doesn't matter how good you do your highlight, you still might want to blur the area.
The gray blending, like you're mentioning, makes sense. That makes sense. I don't know. To me, it's like this. Okay, look, we used to try to.
So you don't break bases.
No, I don't.
And I don't. And I don't repair hair. So we're like the same.
I do a crap ton of corrective hair color because people like
Corrective
you
color
break people's hair and don't repair it properly or tone it properly, send them out the door. And now I have yellow highlighters coming into the salon, and I got to not make them look like a neon yellow highlighter no more.
Corrective color is a thing. Repairing hair is not a thing. I just want you to realize there's a distinguishing line between the two. Oh, look at that. Time is up.
And then, yeah, we're going to get into this repair thing big time, man, because that's going to take us on a whole nother tangent, right?
Yep.
Okay, so breaking the base, if I have to argue for it, it would be good if you're, like you were mentioning earlier, if the highlights are uneven and some are a little too far away, some are a little too close.
But you don't make that mistake.
I personally don't, because I have a plan when I foil.
I'm saying, would you see a reason for base breaking?
That's the argument I'm making right now.
Even when you do perfect highlights like you do.
Why?
That's just yes or no.
No. No. Hard no. Okay, I'm going hard no.
Yeah. So very
I'll argue
sorry,
the comment
all
section.
Of you guys out there.
You know,
Eddie's still growing as a hairdresser, and one day he'll understand this old-fashioned hairdresser.
Right. Yeah. Instead of charging $10 for a base, I'd like to charge $75 for a proper all-over color that's actually going to last for.
Oh, I don't have any idea what you charge for that.
You don't charge a lot for a base bump. That's the problem.
You can.
How are you going to charge a top dollar for something that's only going to last a week or two before it turns brassy as hell again?
Oh my goodness! I'll give you a color class, and
please
I'm
do.
Gonna teach. Yeah, I'll teach you.
And teach me how you foil hair without breaking it and repairing it afterwards.
I'm gonna send you.
Show me.
I'm gonna type up in some instructions. I'll send them along with the pralines next time.
Fine, then I'll actually read it. If you send me with the pralines, I'll actually read it. All right, when would base bumps then be a thing? Like where?
I never did them either. I think we're admitting that we're too old-fashioned hairdressers.
No. I do them. I've done base bumps.
Work. To fix other people's work.
Now to fix other people's work. But when it was becoming a thing and it was trending, look, you can't have 50 freaking people walk in the door and be like, "Do you do base breaks?" And you're like, "No, I don't do them." After a while, you got to be like, what is this going on? Like, what is happening, right? It's like, all right, let's do a couple. Let's see what's happening, right? And let's talk to other people that do them. And let's see what's going on. And let's look into this and let's see what's going on. Because now I'm starting to get phone calls from stylists and from our accounts. And they're saying, I need to do a base break. I need a formula. And I'm like, oh, here we go. So now if people are coming to me for advice, I better know what the hell am I doing, right?
Right.
So I've done it. I've done a lot of it. I don't enjoy doing it. For me personally, but I know a lot of stylists that do it.
Isn't that the struggle for every hairdresser, every person on the planet? We can't enjoy every single part of our careers.
No, right.
That's just impossible. I won't even do an updo. I just can't. I've tried a few times. I flew to New York to do a 2-day class on how to do updos. And during the class, I'm like, this is easy. I think I could do this. I'm going to do them when I get back. I've been suckered into buying Martin Parsons CDs when I was at hair shows. I'm like, he makes this look so easy. And I just never end up doing them. I've spent so much money and time getting motivated. Finally, I'm like, I just don't do that. So I think some things you just don't do, you don't like, and you'll have a prejudice against, and you won't like it. So I think that you're incorrect when you say it's only for fixing bad. I think it's like ombre or balayage. It's like ombres when they first came out and the hair was this long. Oh, I hit the microphone. Right in the middle. It was like brown, blonde. It was a solid line. And I was like, why? Why do people like this?
Well,
And then
yeah.
as the line got a little blurred and then they rated it more of a melt from one to the other and it became the true meaning of ombre where it was blended from one color to the other with a more blended middle, I started to enjoy it. I got to tell you, one is a little off topic, but low-waisted jeans. You know, I grew up in the 80s where everybody wore their jeans a little too high. I say too high, but it was normal. So when low-waisted pants came in, I thought, it looks like it's falling off there. It looks like it's falling off. This looks so stupid. I hated it for the longest time. But I don't even remember when I started to actually think that was the norm, and I liked it. Now the high-waisted pants are coming back in. I think, oh, that looks stupid. You know? So I think low-waisted is more attractive. So it's crazy how your brain works, how you start to like or don't like. I remember a time not too long ago where you didn't like the platinum blonde. You thought it was silly to go that white blonde.
No. I still think it's stupid to go
That's what,
platinum blonde. No.
That's what I'm saying.
I still think it's dumb.
And it's totally a trend, and you have to be careful that you're younger than me, but you're starting to go down that road of old man, and you got to be careful.
Oh, sometimes I've been old man 20 years ago. I was an old man when I was 20.
So I purposely, now at 53 years old, when I don't like something, have to step back and think, God, do I just not like it because I'm getting old? You know, because when you're young, you just accept new trends so fast and easy. Oh, bass breaking or whatever new thing. And you got to just kind of be like,
let me tell you this way.
Is it really bad, good, trend? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter at the end of the day, because earlier I had said, when it comes to hair color, there are so many different ways to achieve the desired result that it's not necessarily good or bad. As long as the client is satisfied and you have that proper relationship with the client, it doesn't matter how you're achieving the desired result for that client, right?
Right.
As a technical support person, because I field a lot of phone calls from stylists asking for help and assistance, I don't enjoy doing platinum blonde highlighting, but I have a ton of formulas for it. I do it because I take my responsibility as a technical support person very seriously. I don't enjoy doing base bumps. I don't believe in breaking the base, but I know how to do it, and I've done it, and I'll do it again when I have to help another stylist out of the rut, out of the, whatever they're stuck in. The reason why I have a prejudice against these things is because when somebody is, now from the client side of things, when the client is over it, they don't want it no more. They want something else. The transition from taking them from that into the next thing has been so horrendous, and I have had to correct so many work that I just naturally get a frustration of, this was so simple. Why didn't somebody talk this out with you, madam? This was so, like, why didn't you speak up to your stylist? Why are you in my chair complaining about your prior stylist that you were seeing for the past 5, 10, 20 years, however long you built a relationship with somebody? Why are you just broken up with them and now you're over here with me and I got to fix everything? Like, why I'm not the garbage man? Why I got to take out all the fix all the problems?
That's how you get new clients.
I understand, but I feel bad too. You had that relationship with somebody. You were rendering services. There was a level of mutual respect and understanding there.
And then it just ends.
What happened in the lines of communications?
Yeah, I get it.
And it's a level of professionalism that I I feel for the industry, and I want people to succeed. I don't want to be the only profitable stylist out there. I want
Right.
other people to be profitable as well, you know?
Yeah.
So that's my soapbox. That's where that's why I become so anti. It's not because I refuse to do these things. It's because I've done so many of them. I don't enjoy doing it no more. And I have found more efficient, better ways, which is why I teach so many different types of classes that I teach.
I was going to say the same thing. I don't see the need for it. I don't see it fixing or doing anything. If you do a decent highlight, there's no reason for it. You know, I would see if maybe they're trying to do that kind of reverse ombre kind of thing where they want the scalp to be lighter and it goes into a darker color on the end of the dark part of the highlight. Fine. But as far as blending, I see it as you see it, as far as it's a more of a, it's almost like thinning shears on a man's haircut. You do the haircut and you got some lines, you're having trouble blending out with
Yeah,
scissors.
you gotta.
Yeah, thin and shear, and it kind of blur it all together with a bunch of different lengths. And that's kind of how I see base breaking as more of a fix. And it's a good tool to have in case you do screw up a little. And I'd like to end with this. You don't have to do it on the whole head. I think you can look at the highlight at the end, and maybe it's just in the part area, the top area where there's, look, I haven't colored my hair in a while. I got all kind of gray hair starting to show through, you know. I probably got virgin hair right now. But I feel like a girl who's got her hair worn a little longer and she's only parting through this top section. You could probably just do your base breaking or base bumping,
Oh
boom,
yeah.
through the part, maybe around the front hairline a little, because the point is you got to get it on fast and get it off fairly fast. And if you try to go through the whole head and you're a newer hairdresser, it's going to take a while anyway. And that's
Yeah.
it for me.
If you're doing something creatively, yeah, yeah, I'll agree with you on that one. As long as the client's happy at the end of the day, it's hair color. Everybody's gonna have 20
I'm
different
going to
ways
get
of doing
RJ to
something.
splice in that part where you say I agree with you on that one, and I'm going to say you can't repair hair, and you're gonna be in the video saying
Don't you
I
dare!
agree with that
Don't
one.
you dare! I'm ending this. I'm ending this right now.
Movie magic.
All right, we're probably gonna cause some arguments in the comments section. I am ready for it. Bernard will be responding to.
With the correct answers, and Eddie will be giving his opinion.
That's basically what it's going to come down to. We will catch you all next week for the showdown on can you repair hair? Is it repairable?